Can you imagine what it would be like to live for 90 years? Well, my grandpa knows all about that because he just turned 90 on May 5th, 2025. And I asked him to share with me 9 life lessons that he learned over the last 90 years of his life so that way I can share them with you all. So let's get after it. Welcome to Practice, where we fuse research and culture to help you develop the mindsets, the habits, and skills that you need in order to live out your purpose with confidence. I'm your coach, Dr. Rees, and it's time for us to get better, y'all. Let's grow. So, as I shared, my grandfather just turned 90. As of the taping of this, it was about a week ago. But whenever you watch this, obviously that time may change. But he was born May 5th, 1935. Even saying that sounds wild because obviously it was 90 years ago. And that time frame of life was so much different than what it is now, and it blows my mind to just think about all the things in the world that he has gone through in order to get to where he is now. One, to still be alive and to still have a smile on his face. And to know my grandpa is to know joy. And so I said, Grandpa, can you give me 9 things that you feel like people need to know, or game that you've gotten, or like life lessons? And I didn't give him a heads up. It was just like, yo, can you give me 9 things? And he was like, right now? And I was like, yes, right now. Tell me 9 things, 9 life lessons that you would share with folks. And so, in good fashion, I recorded the conversation because I believe that you should always record conversations that you have with people who are in your life that you want to be able to keep, and especially a 90-year-old grandpa. But I recorded the convo and I wrote down all 9 of the notes, and I want to share them with you today. So, to give a little more context, my grandfather was born 1935 in North Carolina. He was the youngest of 5 siblings, and his father is black and his mother is Native American. And unfortunately, his mom ended up passing away during giving birth to him. And so my grandfather has a story of resilience, perseverance, hard work, but you'll find in a little bit that he doesn't even really understand the concept of hard work. And I'll tell you why once we get there. But he's had to fight and struggle and strive, and again to work hard to be to where he's at today and to have the life that he's lived. And I'm honored to be a descendant of his legacy and his energy and his effort. And so, born in North Carolina, right? East Coast South, however you want to think about it. East Coast timing, but the top of the South as well. In 1935, which was around the time of the Great Depression. Obviously, slavery is over at this time, but there's another thing that's going on called sharecropping. So my great grandfather, my grandpa's dad, was a sharecropper. And for those who don't know what sharecropping is, it's basically once slavery ended, there were some white folks who still ended up having land, and they would partner, for lack of better terms, with somebody else. And so my great grandfather, he didn't necessarily own the land, but he would help crop the stuff that came up on the land, and he would have to split it with the guy who owned the land. And I don't know who that guy is, and I wonder if I could find out. Anyways, so basically, like, my great grandfather was an entrepreneur, right? He was doing what he could back in the day, and my family lived on the land and they worked it, but he had again split the profits because he didn't own the land. So my grandfather, John, I call him Jonathan, but which is why I was struggling for a second. But John Evans, like I said, was born. He was the fifth child who was born to his mother, and she had passed away while giving birth. When he was born with a cleft lip, and so basically, if you're not familiar with what a cleft lip is, it is where your a part of your lip is like not fully formed, and a part of it is missing. And so from underneath his nose to like the top of his lip, there was pretty much a gap. And his nose and mouth structure was slightly altered because of that. And so he shared with me while growing up, like he got made fun of, that obviously he went through a really, really hard time because can you imagine being the fifth child that your mother gives birth to? So you have 4 older siblings, and when she gives birth to you, she passes. Like, I can't even, it's just hard to even fathom the amount of that he had to go through with having four siblings who had to grieve the loss of their parent, and then he never even got to meet his mom, and then a husband who had to grieve the loss of his wife and became a single mom and a single dad and a widow, all like that. Whew. Like, even telling you all that, and even though I've known it, I've said it, it just, even my, I have a goosebumps kind of at the moment while I'm thinking about the resilience that my great grandfather had to have, right? To become a widow and a single father at the same time of a brand new kid of five kids. Bang. In the 1930s. And he was a sharecropper. And it just is mind blowing when I think about that. And I, even in this moment, I encourage you all to have conversations with the elders in your life. And the elders could be whoever, however you want to designate that. It could be, people who are actually, related to you by blood, or just folks who may be familiar with your ancestral background as far back as you can go. Like, get your history. I will say this is one of the most important things that I've done as I've gotten older, was have conversations with my grandma before she passed, with my grandpa while he's still here. I have another grandmother who is my dad's mom, but she has dementia. So we have conversations, but they because of her illness, they can't go too far due to her memory, unfortunately. But it's so important for us to be able to know, and I know not everybody has the ability to have conversations with folks due to, being adopted in foster care system, or just parents passing and all that kind of stuff. But if you have the privilege to have conversations with people who know your history, and it may not necessarily be your exact lived experience, but it may be your parents, your grandparents, your great greats, all that kind of stuff, man, it's life changing. And it is really an honor to be able to have those conversations. Um, so as I think about, my lineage is resilience. Obviously, as a Black American, that's one piece, but to actually know what my people had to fight for in order for me to be sitting here in front of a camera making a video is, it gives me chills. So my grandfather, he spoke about how his siblings and him didn't get along, rightfully so. Right? Doesn't make it right? No, but it makes sense, right? Like, I can understand how there's so much tension, and there probably weren't counselors, and there wasn't, who knows what the village was like to be able to come in and assist and all that stuff. And so the relationship between my great great grandfather and my grandpa became not volatile, but it wasn't something that my grandfather felt really accepted and loved, unfortunately. And then when he went off to school, he ended up getting picked on because of his cleft lip. And so all of these things, I'm telling you my grandfather's backstory, so that way when I get to these nine things, nine lessons that he learned, it'll make more sense, right? You got to have some context. And so when he got into, I think he said middle school, he was able to go to North Carolina school, which was amazing. So I'm a big fan of them, because he was able to go to the hospital there, and they had a program to where they would fix the lips of kids that had cleft lip. He was able to get his mouth fixed, and that was something that, is helped change his life and help boost his self-confidence and all of those things. And so then, excuse me, after that time frame, when he was about 14, 12 to 14 years old, he said he got tired of working for the white man, which was being a sharecropper. Like, he got tired of working really hard on the field, making doing all this work, making this money. And then his grandpa, my grandpa, or my great grandpa, sorry, because their relationship wasn't healthy, it drove my grandpa away. So eventually he just up and left at 14 years old and ended up getting into the military. And fast forward, that's how he met my grandmother here in Washington, in which led them to having my dad, which led them to me being here. So because there's not even, I don't even want to spend all this time diving into a story, but I wanted to be able to lay the foundation so that way you can understand the man that I'm about to speak about, or the lessons I'm about to speak about, came from a man who had to go through some things, right? Again, highlight being, when he was born, his mother passed away. Then being the youngest of five and being a sharecropper, being born with the cleft lip in 1935. So surviving Jim Crow, sharecropping, the Great Depression, not having a relationship and never being able to meet your mother, like all these different things have boiled up into this man that I love today, which is my grandpa Johnny. So when I ask him, what are 9 things that you feel like you can give that'll apply some game on his 80 something birthday? I can't remember what it was. Um, I asked him a similar question, but I asked him just for kind of one thing. And he's always came back to this main thing: money, 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 money. He's always been about money. And you can't blame him. Like he literally used to basically, he wasn't a slave, but he had to do slave like work in order to make some money. And he'd been working his whole life. And so the first thing that he said
Number one is having a good job.
was have a job. My grandpa said, what is the number one life lesson? Have your butt a job. He is so adamant about making sure that people have the ability to make their own money. And not even just make their own money, but making it in a legal way, being able to have it come in consistently. Like that man don't play about his money. And my dad don't play about his money, which is, I can see the connection between those two. But when he says have a job, he also wants you to do something that you care about, which I think is really, really important because it's not just get you a job and make sure you have a good job, but like get a job that you can utilize your smarts and your brain. And this is something that he literally said verbatim, like use your brain. Like if you don't have to work and use physical labor for your body and you can use your brain, essentially what he was saying, like figure out how you can work smarter and harder, but work hard in a way that makes sense to you, in a way that makes you happy, so that the way the money you're making brings you joy. And I thought that that was amazing to hear him say that. The next thing, number
You
two,
know why?
having a okay,
A companion, somebody,
having a companion,
yeah,
a good job and a
a
companion.
good
Okay.
job. Why? A companion.
He said, get you a wife. And as I broke this down a little bit more, it just came out to right have a partner. And he said the words companion. Have you a companion? The second life lesson my grandfather gave was have a companion. And he he also was a fan of animals. Like my grandpa loves animals so much so that we took our puppies over to visit him for his birthday, and he thought we were giving him one of the puppies. He was so excited. And so not only is it have companion in the form of another human, but I think he also means have companions in the form of like animals and puppies, and just have other aspects around that you can pour into. And I think that is important. I think that's a connection to our overall well-being, in not necessarily self-esteem, but our overall well-being, psychological well-being, is because when you have a mate and somebody to do life with, you also have, dogs and stuff to look after. It helps you be a little bit more responsible. It helps you be a little bit more keyed in. It helps you, it gives you a sense of joy and connection to community as well. And my grandfather, um, guess some might call him a Rolling Stone. He's got a couple kids here and there. And so here, there, different baby mamas, all that kind of stuff. But I think he just was not making no excuses, but a product of his time and a man who valued having a companion. But in his later years in life, he did marry and settle down, and then she ended up passing away. And I can tell, he really misses having that one person, right? And then his dog ended up passing away, which was like super sad within a short time frame. And so have a companion, get you a companion. Number three,
Nice place to live.
a nice place to live.
Yeah.
He said, have yourself a nice place to live. Now, somebody listening to this can be like, of course, yeah, have a job, get a good wife, have a nice place to live. Those are basic. But again, you have to understand the context of where this is coming from a 90-year-old human who survived all these different things, where stability may not have been something he had always had, right? In whether it comes to, or something he was accustomed to. And once he got it, he was like, when I had these things, I knew that I was cool. Because he had to fight for so long, he enlisted into the military. He went and served all around our country, and he lived in Alaska and he lived over here. Like he just did so many different things that I think it's important to understand. When you know what matters to you, that can help you identify if you're living your best version of your life, or you're being your best self, or you're living the life, your version of your good life. And so as superficial or surfacey as have a good place to live may sound, that joint really got some roots to it. Because a lot of folks not suffer from, but a lot of folks have to navigate homelessness. And a lot of folks have to navigate living in tumultuous homes that aren't safe for them, or living in spaces that aren't healing or maybe aren't good. And so, as surfacey and kind of no brainer that may seem, when you take time to get underneath the hood of that, it really makes sense. And so, it's also on the part of, don't take for granted your good home that you may have. Be content with the good home that you may have as well, and make your home a safe home with your companion, with your dogs, with your human, all of that that is funded by your good money. So, number 4, and this one again is kind of is simple next to um having a home.
Transportation.
Transportation, because you can get around. Yep. But it's transportation. And my grandpa was a car man, and my dad is a car man. And I like cars as well. But he was very big on just having, himself a nice, and obviously old school because it was back in the day, but having himself a nice whip, that can get him to that job and that he could park in front of his house. And for him, these were signals that he was doing what he needed to be doing, that he was taking care of business, that he was being responsible, that he was showing up and going to work, and that he made something of himself, and out of his life, from starting from where he was at, literally, the bottom, and got himself up out to be able to build this up. And when I listen to my dad talk about my grandpa, it puts a smile on my face, because my dad loves my grandpa the way I love my dad and the way I love my grandpa. But in that, though, he talks about how, his dad was so cool, and he would pull up in this kind of car, and he would do this and that. And I see my dad being the same way in that vein, and just having a level of respect for him, not just because of the tangible aspects that he assets that he had, but because of the type of father that he was, and how he showed up for him, and how he added value, to his life. But also, he was a cool dude. He was a dude that nobody wanted to mess with. He was a dude who, stood on his P's and Q's, and was very disciplined, and was matter of fact, and nobody wanted to mess with John, because they knew John was about that life. And again, goes back to one of the things was saying, just make sure you have your needs met. If my grandpa was sitting right here and I was interviewing him, he would say, ain't nobody coming to rescue you. So make sure you have the things that you need, and you have the ability to build this life for you, which I really think that the reason why it was so easy for him to spit out these top 4, or these top 4 so quick, is because he cannot stand somebody who waits for life to be brought to them. Like, he cannot stand he cannot stand laziness. He cannot stand procrastination. He cannot stand somebody who's just like, gimme, gimme, can I have some? Like, bruh is get up, go get it, make something of yourself, make something of your life, and then get the things that you need to have in order to provide for you and your family, and keep that joint pushing. And so that is something that I really respect, and that I see from him. And so when it comes to transportation, and it comes to having you a car, it doesn't have to necessarily be the nicest car, but make sure you have your own, so that way you don't have to feel like you got to rely on somebody else in order for you to get where you got to go. And this is something that, I mean, man, that I think it's a really, really big deal. And there's a bigger picture, obviously, to that. But at the end of the day, again, make sure you got your job, make sure you got your companion, your village, make sure you got your nice place to live, and your transportation. Those are his top 4. His 5th one, which I think makes a lot of sense considering he's 90 years old, is have your health stuff in order. Have your health stuff in order. So that was when I asked him, he was like, your doctors, your dentist, your insurance, have all of your health stuff in order. Why? Because if you're blessed enough to get older or still be living, stuff's going to happen. And one thing about my grandpa and my dad is they not the black men who ain't going to the doctors. If something's wrong, them cats is going to the doctors. Why? Because they want to be healthy and they want to live, as long as they can and be the healthiest. And so, um, number five for him was have your health in order and have your health resources in order as well. And I think this is an amazing just life tip that even I can, not even I, that I can take advantage of and remind myself is like, do I have these pieces? A lot of times we want to be able to um, have our money in order. But again, having our health in order allows us to have our wealth in order. And so I think that these top five things that my grandpa is sharing really speak to the life he's lived and the life that he's built, and how even now at 90, he goes to doctor's appointments regularly. He gets seen about whatever it is so that way he can continue to live his life as best as possible. Now, he's not as agile and moving around and doing different things, but the fact that he's been here for 90 years, man, that is amazing, and something I think I aspire for. I think that'd be cool as long as I have my health. That yeah. If I don't have my health, I don't want to live that long. Period. Like if I don't have the ability to get up and move around, oh shoot. If I don't have the ability to get up and move around and provide for myself, then I think I'm good. Um, we can talk about that on another day. So let's get back to it. Number six, he said, have you a good bank account? Bruh man again does not play about his money. He said, have you a bank account? Right. So that way you can store your money obviously somewhere. But I'm gonna take this and extend it a little bit further. Have you multiple bank accounts? Have you a bank account? Have you a credit union account? Have you a brokerage account? Have you a digital bank account? Because when you can have your money diversified across all these spaces, that allows your money to work harder for you. So that way it's not just sitting idle in one spot, right? So if you have your bank that's doing certain things, that's responsible for your everyday, monthly, weekly kind of needs. Then maybe you have a credit union account that helps you with some other things, maybe a higher interest rate in the savings account. Then you have a digital bank that has like your high interest yield savings account. It has maybe a CD in it that you have some more money that you can diversify and put away in there. And then from there, you have your brokerage account that you're doing your investing in. So don't just have a bank account, have multiple accounts that have reasons for them, right? Every account has a reason, and your money's diversified in these accounts so they can do the different things that you need to be done, right? That you need done in your life in order for you to live your good life. And, like you talked about, make sure your rent is paid, right? Make sure your mortgage is paid. Make sure you have your nice place to live in your transportation. Make sure your ducks are in order that away. Number seven, I asked him at this point, at this point in the conversation, he said, how many more do I got? How many more do I need to give you? And I said, we're at six. I said, what about friends? Because he hadn't really mentioned anything about friends yet. And I I've seen my grandfather interact with my dad's friends who come over. And he loves military men, and he just loves people. But his guys, you could tell are like military men, or men who are like masons, or loves kids, loves animals, all those different. But I haven't seen him too much with like friends his age. One, probably because they ain't driving around to each other's houses. So I brought it up. I said, "What about friends?" And he said it's hard to find good friends. And I said, "True." And he said, you'll probably find a backstabber before you find a good friend." And I had to sit on that for a minute. And as much as that is true, it also broke my heart though, because that just speaks to his bigger story, right? Where he's was able to, get it out the mud, literally get it out the dirt, get it out the field, and then build this life. And then to read between the lines, right, as his goddaughter, and hear him say, like, I found backstabbers before I found real friends. I mean, I think that's what a lot of the rap industry even talks about today. But it breaks my heart though, because friendship, as we know, is necessary. But then he goes on and says, be a good friend. Be a good friend, because it goes back to him valuing companionship in people. But also, I don't want to skip over the point of, yeah, you probably will find a backstabber before you find a good friend. But I believe too that if you have the ability to be a good friend, it enables you to attract good friends. And we're all going to get backstabbed at some point in time. The hope is that you don't allow that to prevent you from being a good friend, so you can attract new friends in your life who aren't backstabbers, right? Like, we're all going to have to go through them. And so I just thought that that was interesting and funny. He was like, yes, it's hard to find good friends, and you'll probably find a backstabber before you find a real good friend. But don't let that stop you from being a good friend. Number eight. Number eight is interesting because of what I talked about at the very beginning. As I was trying to probe him, because he was like, I gave you my top six. Like, these are it right here. As long as you got your basic needs met, your life is going to be good. Which I think there is a whole lot to say about that. And obviously, I was trying to pull out nine because he's 90, and I didn't want him to give me 90 things. And so when I asked him about, I said, how about hard work? How about like working hard? He was like, what about working hard?
Papa, Papa.
You're
I
funny.
said a job.
But what about work ethic though? Is that important? Working hard, is that important?
A job is important.
Yeah, so working hard at that job.
Well, you don't say working hard. Just say a job.
A job.
A good job.
A good job.
A good job.
Good job.
Good job.
That pays you
Good
money.
income.
For good income. He literally looked at me with a distinct face of confusion. I was like, what about working hard? He said, I said have a job. And so I said, and in my mind, I was like, he thinks having a job and a good job is synonymous with working hard. Like, he doesn't understand how somebody can have a job and not work hard. Like, he's not going to tell somebody that one thing that you should do in life is to work hard. Like, to him, it's a no-brainer. To him, it is like second nature. Like, he literally feels like if you're going to have this and you're going to aspire for that, then the only way you get it is to work hard. The only way you get it is to apply pressure and effort and energy. And he said, I worked for 40 years. What you mean? Yeah, work hard. Like, it's not second nature, a no-brainer. Like, that is what you do, is you work hard. However you want to get it in life, you better make sure you work hard. And that is something that I've heard my grandpa say through and through, is like, the work is hard, period. So we don't even need to add hard work in front of it. You just do the work, which is why I thought that that was, really, really interesting. Again, that just having a job equates to the amount of effort that you put in, because he don't respect lazy people. Like, he just don't. Like, he just thinks that if you're lazy and you're a gimme person and you just want the world to come to you, like, he don't got no respect for you. And I don't blame him. So that's number 8. Number 9 is TNT. And when I said, again, I was trying to probe him because he was like kind of all out, and I was trying to think of other things that he has always told me. So I was like, what about TNT? And he giggled. And TNT stands for tain't nothing to it. TNT stands for tain't nothing to it. Basically, what that means is show up, get it done, enjoy your life. Sometimes it's not that big of a deal, but the things that are that big of a deal, you apply pressure, you apply energy, you apply effort, because TNT, tain't nothing to it. It just means enjoy your life. And I am blessed to be a descendant of this man for multiple different reasons. My grandfather and I didn't have a relationship for, up until about 8 years ago. And so when he was 80, maybe 82, about 82. And the reason why we didn't really have a relationship is because for majority of his life, he struggled with the drug addiction. And so in hindsight, not even just in hindsight, I can sit here and I can hear his story as if he wasn't my grandfather, but then being able to see him through the lens of just being a human and hearing all the crazy things he's had to go through. And I could see how he ended up, developing a drug addiction. And through that, though, the fact that he's been clean now for about eight plus eight some years. Now I don't know how long he did it for. I don't know how long. Like I can't say he did drugs for 40 years. I don't no idea. But I will find out. But I do know that he doesn't drink, he don't smoke, he don't do no drugs, he don't do nothing, and he's been able to really elongate his life, I believe, because of that. And this is through many of deaths of siblings, of um, you know, what's the word I was about to say? Siblings and grandkids and all of that, and parents and all the things that he's had to deal with. And I believe my grandfather's somebody who did the best that he could, and he shows up. And he shows up in his way. And if you come to him, he will come to you with open arms. And I believe he is one of the funniest men I have ever, funniest humans I've ever encountered in my life. And so anytime I have the ability to have a connection, have a conversation with him, I know that I'm gonna walk away, smiling. And I'm grateful that I was able to the time frame that we've been able to spend together over the last 8 years has cultivated this amazing relationship, and lose his release of his drug addiction that has allowed us to be able to cultivate a relationship. And it came at just the right time in my life, and I'm just so 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 grateful for that. So here are my biggest takeaways that I want you to get from this episode, when it comes to your confidence, when it comes to mindsets, when it comes to habits, when it comes to skills, and how to live out your purpose with confidence. Is one is in order for you to know more about yourself, you have to check your history. You got to be able to check the the lives lived of the people whose ancestry runs through you, right? What was their experiences like? What was their life like? And to the degree, right, that you can. I know that not everybody has that privilege to be able to do that, but to the degree that you can. One thing that I know, because my grandfather was an addict and my dad was an addict, I have uncles that are addicts. I'm very conscious on making sure that I don't develop an addiction in any way. There's been food addictions that I had to deal with, but that I don't develop any addictions to drugs. I make sure that I watch um, even alcohol consumption and all of that, because it is something that I'm easily susceptible to. Why? Because that's a part of my history. But another thing that's a part of my history is being a hard worker. Even though my grandpa would just think it's work, that is something that I value. Both of my grandparents, both my grandfathers and great great grandfathers were entrepreneurs. Here I am being an entrepreneur. And so that's one piece, right? Is look through the lens of your past to learn that much more about you and who you are. Number two, from a mindset stance, allow your name to be synonymous with hard work. I think that that's a really big deal. Like, do the work to make your name synonymous with hard work. One quick example that I'll use is Kobe. Even our son this morning went to go shoot an ice cube into the sink. Kobe, I don't even know if this guy could identify a picture of Kobe. He might, but I'm not really sure if he can, because one, he's not that big of like a hoop head like that. But he just hears people go, "Oh, Kobe." But Kobe's name is it's synonymous with being a bucket, with working hard, with again that Mamba mentality, all the way down to kids who probably don't even really know. They just know that that's what you do, right? And so with my grandfather, that's what I think about. Like, just work. And whenever, I present to him anything from getting my doctorate, I dedicated a lot of my doctorate, my dissertation to him, and just seeing the joy in his face of just like you did that. And he tells me he's proud of me all the time for working hard and for being diligent and for showing up. And the compliments he gives me is through that lens. And so I want to give and say that same thing back to you is what do you want your name to be synonymous with? Like, what do you want people to think about when they think about you? Whether they're celebrating your legacy after living for so long, or they're celebrating your legacy after death, like people do when it comes to Kobe. Um, what compliments do you want to receive? And all of this plays into our self confidence because these are things that we're working towards. And it could also play towards your craft confidence because it's a part of how you show up and how you're doing and how you're getting things done. And so I think those are just really things to think about when it comes to mindsets and it comes to the habits that you're cultivating, and the skills that you're growing in as well. Um, Another thing is when it comes to your psychological well being overall, is making sure your needs are met. There's Maslow's hierarchy of needs and there's been some research around that says it's, I don't want to say debunked, but says there's an extra layer. But I won't get into that because I don't have all the information on that research at the moment. But making sure your basic needs are met, because when you know that you have a safe place to lay your head at night, when you know that you have a car or transportation that you can depend on, when you know that you have a good job, whatever your definition of good is, when you know you have those things from a psychological, physical psychological space, it increases your well-being because you know that your needs are met. It allows you to be able to grow. It allows you to be able to focus on other areas of your life. In Maslow's words, it helps you reach self actualization. And so do the work to make sure that your foundation is solid. And then the next piece to that, really, what my grandpa broke down is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I just realized that. Like, in order for you to TNT, which is to taint nothing to and to have a good life, you got to make sure your foundational needs are met and that you're the one who is providing that. You are bringing that into fruition. You know how to work hard to get after it, to provide for yourself. But then also make sure you have a community, make sure you have a village, make sure you weed out those backstabbing friends and you keep your companion and your friends close and your enemies further away. And that is something that I've picked up by watching my grandpa, by listening to my grandpa, and just by sitting and spending time with him and watching what he values. Is a man from who was born in the 1930s, who served in the military, who lost his mother at birth, who had a cleft lip, who was a sharecropper and sharecropped for 14 years of his life and worked hard to get his high school diploma or GED, and just worked hard to provide for his family and to build. Like, that resiliency runs through my veins and runs through me to this day. And there is somebody in your life who was super resilient that has empowered you to be the person that you are today. Pay homage to them, pay respect to them, give them some love in whatever way that you feel like you can. And that is this was me, how I wanted to be able to step up to the mic and pay some homage to my grandpa. Now, he may not ever listen to this because I don't know how he would, because he got a little flip phone, and so I'll have to figure out how I can have him listen to this. But I just got to give big ups to that man for being the amazing, God fearing, faithful father, grandpa, human being, funny, who was kind, who will give anybody the shirt off his back, who will give any dog any treat at any point in time, who was loving, who is hilarious. And I'm so, so, so honored to be the granddaughter of John Evans. And I thank God for our ability to be able to know each other, and thank my grandfather for his resilience and his resistance to deny and to become clean and to live and to still live at the age of 90. So I look forward to celebrating him for many, many more. But I do know that when he passes on and he goes to heaven, that he will be somebody who left it all out on the table. And I will be honored to continue to carry out the torch of John Evans' legacy. So that is it. That is my thought process for you today, is to pick up on these 9 things, is to tap in with your familial history, whatever way that you can, is to figure out what mindsets do you need to adopt to continue to enjoy the life that you've been blessed to be able to live, and to do it with confidence, to live out that purpose with confidence. So I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. Until next time, I'm your coach, Dr. Rees. I love y'all. Peace.